Welcome to Nonsense, Season 3, Episode 59, our big story and our second show of the week. I'm Jeff Parker.
I'm Stu Little.
I love, CJ, celebrating technological advances.
Yeah?
I know so many people who hate change.
Sure.
Once they learn something, they don't want to have to learn a new way of doing it.
Yes.
Even if the new way offers a ton of huge improvement.
We call those Windows users.
You and I love technological change. We love the learning curve, and we love how far we move forward, how fast human curiosity pulls us forward.
Yeah, I don't love that my co-host knows that's true, and you like to just sprinkle stuff in front of me. That's not great. You're like, hey, look at that over there. And then 4 weeks later, I'm a master of some defunct JavaScript language. Like, thanks a lot, Jeff.
But we both get excited about technological advances of all kinds. And I mean all kinds, which is why this time we're looking at cochlear implants, how new tech unlocks an improved spectrum of sound. Up next.
Do you know, can you go the other way?
Yeah.
Like, is there like a cochlear mute button?
Sure, there might
I suspect my wife would want one of those installed in her head. It only triggers whenever she's within like 15 feet of me. It would just mute everything and she'd be very happy.
I think it's interesting you think it's just your wife who wants that.
Wait, do you mean like
I think it's probably a long list of people wanting one of those.
Wait, hold on. People that want to mute when there's other people around them, or just specifically me?
Okay, cochlear implants, game changers for the profoundly deaf and those with no hearing whatsoever. Let's go.
I miss our week off.
Cochlear implants are a sound revolution, yet astonishingly, studies suggest that less than 10% of adults who qualify and could benefit from this life-changing technology have received one. This massive gap in care is precisely why the latest wave of advances is so critical. The new generation of CIs is driven by dual innovation: smart electronics and gentler surgery. Externally, AI-driven sound processors are delivering unprecedented clarity, automatically adapting to filter speech from noisy crowds, a feature once deemed impossible. Internally, surgical advances prioritize the long-term health of the ear. This includes atraumatic electrode insertion, a precise, slow, and careful technique, sometimes assisted by robotics, designed to minimize the damage to the delicate cochlear structures. This soft surgery approach is key to preserving residual low-frequency hearing, allowing some users to combine their natural hearing with the implant's electronic signals for a more rich and natural auditory experience. These micro-miracles offer a path to a more connected world for millions. Sound where once there was none.
This is some really funny stuff. My jokes for the deaf are they're gonna slay today, aren't they?
Yeah, this is gonna be a good one for you.
Oh boy.
I would like to break this serious discussion into 5 areas.
I'd like to have this serious with someone else, I think is what you're trying to say. All right, fine.
Expectation. By the way, you and I are both still, even as we are starting this recording, we have both just been very moved by seeing a video of a 14-year-old girl who had no hearing.
Yeah.
And they put the implant in. They have what they call activation day, where they actually turn the thing on, put the device on her head.
Yeah.
And suddenly she has
hearing.
Where once there was no hearing, she now has hearing, and she is sobbing and crying. And you and I were both like emotional.
And then I'm crying. Yeah.
Just wrecks.
Because I could hear her crying, and then I was crying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was quite a thing.
It was incredible.
All right, so let me get back to this. I like to break this discussion into 5 areas.
Okay.
Expectations of restored hearing, candidacy expansion and device longevity, the rehabilitation journey and bimodal hearing, lifestyle integration and practical challenges, and finally, technological frontiers and future innovations. And I know you and I are going to gravitate toward that last section.
Was there a sale on adjectives? There were a whole lot of adjectives in that list.
Okay, well, we'll go over all of it, but I want to start first with an overview and say, who are cochlear implants for? They're not for everyone. They are not hearing aids.
Well, yeah, I mean, I thought they were just for the Koch brothers, but I figured out that wasn't the case pretty quickly. No, they are not hearing aids. I assumed they were like a beefed up hearing aid, and really nothing could be farther from the truth. I mean, they do still affect your hearing, but they're totally different animals. Specifically, cochlear implants are for folks who are severely to profoundly deaf in one or both ears, and you don't get enough benefit from a hearing aid. So a hearing aid is basically a oversimplification,
an amplifier
and a speaker. That's really all it is, right? It's got a microphone. They'll maybe do a little bit of signal processing, but it's basically putting a speaker next to your ear with a little microphone and then being able to turn it up.
And now they have Bluetooth.
They do have Bluetooth. Yes, trust me. I used Bluetooth as a selling point for my father to get hearing aids, which totally worked. He 100% got hearing aids and then connected connected it to his phone and now just listens to music the entire time.
Sure.
So when I'm trying to talk to him, he can't hear me because he has music on in his ears and I can't tell.
You come by him and he turns it up so that he goes, oh, hang on just a second. I got to adjust my hearing aids and I got to turn up the music.
This is somewhat terrible, but the way he controls it, if he doesn't have his phone near him, is you tap your ear. So he's just constantly smacking himself in the head. And it's just hard not to laugh when he's hitting his ear. It's just, anyway. Cochlear implants are like direct wiring to the brain, which is really kind of crazy. You have these things that are not like plugged directly into the brain, they're plugged into the thing that's plugged in directly to the brain. And that's pretty
By the way, the surgery doesn't go into the skull. It's not brain surgery.
Not at all. It's really nuts. The surgery seems almost straightforward. It is not, but it seems almost straightforward. But folks who need these things, you're talking about adults who've lost most of their hearing later in life and can't understand speech even with powerful hearing aids.
Sure.
So those are folks that don't kind of remember what sound was like, so their brain can adapt pretty fast after the implantation of the cochlear implants. Children born with severe or profound hearing loss, and that's where you want to get the kids tested and their implants as soon as possible, because if they get them hopefully before the age of 2, typically their speech and language will develop at about the same rate as kids that haven't lost their hearing. And the other group that I didn't know about are people with what they call single-sided deafness, SSD. SSD to me means something completely different. But SSD in this case are folks who have one good ear and one ear that does not work well. Is dead. And then they can do some really interesting tricks with the cochlear implant so that you now no longer just have, quote, one good ear. You can hear out of both ears. That's the basic gist of them.
The cochlear implant has 2 parts. There's the part that's implanted into...
Yes, the part that's implanted isn't near the cochlea. It's between the skin and the muscle. It's really right at the skin surface, just underneath the skin. They then take a wire, basically.
The connection, Yeah,
they make a small hole in the bone and they thread it through the bone into the cochlea so that it sort of wraps. The cochlea looks like a little snail shell.
Sure.
And it sort of wraps around it. And that's basically the receiver. The part that's under the skin is like the receiver. And you'll see the external component, which is what has the microphone. You'll typically see that wrapped around the ear. It'll have a speech processor, basically a little tiny computer that analyzes and digitizes the sound. And then it usually magnetically clips on to the skin, connected to the part that's implanted underneath your skin. It's really fascinating how it works, but it kind of snaps on and allows you to get that connection then all the way to the cochlea.
Okay, so the cochlear implant world is basically a 3-horse race with a couple of scrappy contenders on the side. Tell me commercially, who is making these things?
Well, first and foremost, the good news is neither of the 3-horse race or the scrappy side contenders are Tesla.
Okay.
So that's, I think, a perk. Cochlear Limited is the big one, right? They're the heavyweight champ. They have about 60% plus of the global market. They were founded in the early 1980s.
This is the Australian
spun
company.
out of the University of Melbourne. Yeah, they're an Australian company.
Yeah.
And they've got a couple flagship products. They're known for reliability and long-term support. Like they seem like the one where you kind of just can't go wrong. Ironically, it doesn't convert everything it hears into Australian, which I thought would be really funny, but they don't do that. There's a company called Advanced Bionics that's here in the US. They're owned by Sonova, which is a Swiss hearing aid giant. They've been around for a little while. They're big on signal processing magic, and they're sort of more of a high-tech slant on this, a little bit newer, a little more flashy and proprietary.
Sure.
And then there's Medel, which is MED-EL. This is an Austrian company. They're family-owned. They're very science-driven, sort of user-focused. They're supposed to have excellent sound fidelity and a more, quote, gentle electrode design. Those are 3 big ones.
Although Austrian audio is some of the best. You and I are both speaking into Austrian engineered microphones right now.
Yeah, the Austrians are like the Germans. They
have moved so far ahead in audio technology.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, the Austrians are great. They're like the Germans, just with slightly less anger.
Okay.
Fantastic.
You're going to answer the hate mail. Tell me about the honorable mentions. Who else is in the race?
You got a couple other companies. There's a company in Denmark called Oticon Medical. They've got some cochlear implants. You've got Neurosoft, which is in France. They're sort of more of a regional player there. And then you've got a couple Chinese startups or newer companies. Like I think one's called Neurotron and Refresh. They're trying to improve their tech for sort of the more cost-sensitive markets, if you will. I think they're trying to make that a little less expensive. Also, ironically, on this, Chinese is one of the hardest languages to get
to listen to,
through a cochlear implant because it's so tonal. And we'll come back to that when we cover this here. But it's interesting how some languages don't work well with cochlear implants for real science-based reasons.
So whatever they're putting in your ear in the surgery, you have that for a lifetime. But the outside components, they can be replaced.
Yes.
The part that's the microphone, the parts that's the processor, that can all be replaced. It's then just talking to the internal stuff, telling it what electrical pulses to pass on to your auditory nerves.
Yes, that part seems relatively what I'll call straightforward. not straightforward, but you've got a electrode and a receiver. So the thesis is that you want that to be a lifetime installation because you don't want to increase scar tissue. You don't want to do additional damage by taking those in and out. The exterior parts are ones you would expect to replace every sort of 5 to 10 years. There's a story a guy tells on YouTube of losing his cochlear processor, the external components in a taxi cab. Oh, yeah.
And it drops down into a seat, and he becomes so dependent on this thing, and this thing has fallen into the seats, and he can't get it.
Sure.
And the taxi cab driver just wants to get paid and get out of there.
Yeah.
And he is watching his hearing drive away.
Terrible.
Heartbreaking.
I feel the same way with my Labubus. Get driven away.
Oh, my.
There's no way to make that funny. The guy's hearing just left. Like, that's terrible in every possible way.
And he's completely dependent on it. Yeah, sure.
And he's completely dependent on it. Like, I mean, I guess what's the closest thing you could feel on that? Like your cell phone?
Well, think about if your glasses were in the car and they drove away, but you go back to your house. These days, glasses are so cheap. You have 9 pairs laying around at your house.
I'd waddle back into CVS and buy another pair for $3.89, and I'd go on my merry way.
Unless you had an astigmatism, sure, and then you'd have to get a prescription.
I'd squint in one eye. I'd be okay. But this guy can't hear.
Yeah, the hearing thing is a much more exotic piece of equipment. He's concerned about am I going to have to pay the costs?
Yeah.
Because it's thousands of dollars. Let us talk about expectations of restored hearing. A cochlear implant doesn't restore hearing in the traditional sense. It redefines it. The sounds it delivers are not electrical, not acoustical. They are often described as robotic, mechanical, or digital when first experienced. The brain must learn to interpret these signals, rewiring itself through training and time.
So this was one of the more fascinating parts of this to me. So it's like, what does this sound like? First of all, how do you know what it sounds like? Because how does somebody that can't hear without them show you what they sound like with them? Like, that seems very hard to figure out. There have been some interesting examples. I'll put some links in the show notes, but what you're hearing is a much lower resolution of the spectrum. So instead of hearing what's human hearing? You can hear thousands of different tones.
Well, think about this. You have a modern CI has about 8 tones to it. What I'll call tones.
Give or take.
Somewhere between 8 and 20.
Yeah.
So imagine seeing the world in 8 to 20 colors instead of the millions of colors your eye can perceive.
There's a bunch of people, especially in this country, that see the world in one color.
Okay.
So that's maybe not the best analog to use.
Remarkably, over time, your brain figures that out and translates the ultra low resolution sound.
Well, this is what's so fascinating.
Into understandable communication.
Yeah. We hear on the order of thousands or tens of thousands of tones, right? Your typical ear.
You have thousands of hairs.
Little hair follicles.
In your cochlea that are giving you...
I'm half Italian. I have tens of thousands of little hairs in my cochlea. But it's the Mediterranean blood in me. No, yeah, this is what's so amazing. We hear on the order of thousands, tens of thousands of tones, give or take. These implants, you see basically...
8 to 20.
8 to 20, right? So it's like... 3 or 4 orders of magnitude.
That number will improve with time, I'm sure.
Yeah, of course. But even just with that, it's a difference between not hearing any, so 0, and being able to make out words.
Right.
But the challenge is when you plug this thing in, it's not like what you're used to. If you could hear before and now you've lost your hearing, it doesn't sound the same. It sounds much more, they describe it as sort of mechanical and robotic.
It sounds like 8 tones. It sounds like 20 tones.
It sounds like 8 tones. Yeah. But just to go back to something you had said, it's not it's not an acoustical simulation. It's not right now what's happening when you hear this show, you're hearing these little hairs. What you're hearing are the hairs vibrating inside your cochlea, and that gets translated into electrical signals that your brain has figured out over the years to interpret as sound.
Over millions of years.
Yeah, I mean, true, over millions of years. They've cut that step out, right? They've cut out the step of the hairs. So that what the cochlear implant's doing is basically the role of the hairs, right? It's doing it electrically directly into your brain, which is fascinating.
But still, like subtext, because you don't have all those tones, subtext is totally a challenge. And listening becomes active work because you're having to translate these very low resolution sounds into what you now perceive as language. And it's a pretty steep learning curve from when you activate your cochlear implants to the point where you are comfortable and start hearing what voices sound like. Even then, subtext is a tough thing to understand.
If you can't see someone's facial expressions, right?
Yeah, you need other cues.
You need other cues. But if you can't see someone's facial expressions, listening on a cochlear implant sounds to me a lot like texting.
Yeah.
Like when you text someone, it's very hard to figure out tone unless they put something else in, some emoji, some smiley face, whatever, some GIF. It's hard to figure out that tone. And that's what it sounds like these folks have to adapt to after they get their cochlear implants is you lose all sort of nuance around the language is gone. You're just hoping to get the basic words.
The language. Auditory therapy becomes essential, transforming unfamiliar patterns into meaningful sound. While cochlear implants don't fix deafness, they open a powerful new channel of auditory access offering awareness of voices, music, and the environment. To be clear, current devices cannot make music sound like it does for a person with hearing.
Yeah.
These are still very low-resolution devices.
One of the videos I'll link to, they play Für Elise from Beethoven. And of course, I just spoiled it, I guess, for you all. But they play it before they tell you what it is. And you're like, what is this? It just sounds like...
You'd never be able to recognize it.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a cat jumping on telegram wires. Like you have no idea what's happening. And then they play it and you're like, oh, I get it.
Think what's happening when you're listening to music. You're hearing so many tones simultaneously, especially if you're hearing classical music, a symphony or something like that.
Yeah.
What cochlear implants do is if you have a single tone or limited number of tones that you need to hear simultaneously, like hearing a voice, like hearing a human voice. So the result isn't natural hearing, but a remarkable collaboration between human adaptability and engineering innovation, a new way of listening built through perseverance and neuroplasticity. Understand there is a big learning curve to these devices. Your outcome depends on the work you put in. It's not like putting on a pair of glasses and suddenly your vision is clear.
Which was how my LASIK was, basically.
Yeah.
But then I got old.
It takes a year sometimes for people to understand.
More. I think it takes a year for you to get like to the first big bump.
Well, some people talk about getting there around 6 months, but there are people who take a year or longer. You have to have a lot of patience. You have to listen to a lot of audiobooks and just keep working at it before your brain figures out how to turn these electrical impulses into the audio that you and I take for granted listening to every day.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about candidacy expansion and device longevity. Cochlear implant candidacy is rapidly expanding to include people with single-sided deafness, asymmetric loss, and some residual hearing, redefining who qualifies for access to sound, yet outdated insurance criteria still gatekeep progress, leaving many potential users in limbo. As implementation becomes more common and earlier in life, new questions emerge about device longevity. Internal components are designed to last for decades, but technology and anatomy evolve. Replacement surgery carries risks from scar tissues to loss of residual hearing. The next frontier isn't just broader access, it's sustainable innovation, designing implants that adapt, endure, and remain compatible with future breakthroughs over a lifetime of hearing.
I mean, I want to believe in this. This sounds like a really hard problem because how do you keep your future tech from being held back by your previous tech?
Upgradable firmware.
Right. Well, yeah, but then
and they're doing that.
Yeah, but at some point you got to give up on the USB-A port.
Yeah, that's true.
And you start thinking about the scale of humans and you're like, well, man, the technology, if you get it single digit years out of, you're doing pretty good. If you get double digit years out of, effectively, that's insanely good. So, humans are, at least for now, still living up into the high double digit years. And I think that's a tough intersection, but I do believe they're figuring it out. I also love, this is a very complex yet simple process. And I find that kind of fascinating. Like with the how they figured this out over the years, I can only imagine when someone was like, yeah, we're going to put this wire in your ear and hope you can hear better, right? Like that's an incredible journey. But now they've quote simplified or at least made it so routine that it's not, there's virtually no risk to this. Like the side effect risk is so low that you can get it in these situations, especially with candidates you otherwise wouldn't have considered. It adds such benefit with such little risk that you might as well do it.
And as the external device improves, as they start to add more and more AI into the external device, you will be able to hear in a noisy room with lots of background noise.
Yeah.
You will be able to pull out just the sound of the person who's talking to you.
Well, yeah, until the AI starts kicking in hallucinations, and then it's another...
Just making up what the other person is saying.
Yeah, totally. Just 100% making it up. When your cochlear implant's on acid, the AI acid, that's not going to be a good day.
I'm sorry, Dave. I can't do that.
Yeah. It's really incredible. The candidacy expansion is, I feel like there's a couple angles on this. There's the one of like getting it to more disease states or folks that are different populations, right? That may have, like you had mentioned, single-sided deafness, and that's great. But it sounds like if you really want to get this more candidates that can benefit from what I think is got to be a life-changing procedure, then the biggest trick is getting it paid for. That sounds like that's a big challenge here. I don't know much about comparing this to other regions, but at least in the US, I can imagine how difficult it is to get this paid for, especially by insurance. And it seems like it should be a pretty slam dunk case. Like no one who can hear is gonna be like, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to hear worse. Like, let me get a cochlear implant. I hear too well right now. Please let me hear worse. Yeah, that's not going to be the thing. So if someone needs this,
no one is faking if they need this or not.
Yeah. And that's why we should pay for it.
True.
So they can get it. And then hear, which then makes them more productive. It gives them more confidence. It gives them more opportunity. Like this seems like a net positive.
Way more opportunity for sure.
This seems like this is a net positive, not just for them, but for everybody around them, right? GDP goes up. Like you've got more people that could work and do things, even more constructively. Not that they couldn't work before, but there are more opportunities for them.
Let's talk about the rehabilitation journey and bimodal hearing. Activation day is just the starting line.
Yeah.
When the cochlear implant first stimulates the auditory nerve, the brain hears sound, but not meaning. Rehabilitation transforms that chaos into comprehension through hours of listening practice, speech therapy, and neural training. Progress is not instant. It's built through persistence and plasticity.
This to me is much like orthopedic surgery. You go through any major orthopedic surgery and you're like, whoa, man, I am so glad to be through the surgery. Turns out that's the starting line.
Yeah, that's the easy part.
That's where you start. You start after the surgery because you get to go sleepy time from the propofol during the surgery.
Yeah.
And you wake up and you're uncomfortable and you don't know where you are for a little while. And then you're like, oh, okay, great, I'm through that. Now comes the rehab. And that's, anywhere from 3 to 6 to 12 months, depending on the surgery.
Rehab is a good analog for this.
Yeah, that's what it is.
You're really learning how to hear things in a completely different way.
You can kind of think of it not even as hearing. It's a different kind of hearing. It's a completely different animal. It's really fascinating. What is been the most impressive in this research we've done for this is just how quickly the brain adapts. And there are some great videos and some articles that we'll share in the links where these folks talk about how at first you're just struggling to make out the words after you get your implant. And after a couple months, you can start to make them out. And then after 6 to 12 months, now it's normal.
Yeah.
Like it's just become the thing that is normal. And the best empirical analog I have for this is if you've ever put on a pair of tinted glasses, like heavily tinted yellow glasses. You put them on and you go, oh, wow, everything is yellow. Everything around you just looks yellow. And then after some very brief period of time, single digit minutes, you don't really notice it anymore. Like if you think about it, you think, oh, maybe it's kind of yellow, but you don't really notice it. Then you take those tinted glasses off and now everything looks blue, right? Because and it's really crazy.
Your brain has made the adjustment.
Your brain's adapted. And that's really crazy to me how that works. Like I've always wondered, how do I know that you see red like I see red?
Well, you don't.
Right? Or you see blue like you don't. You just don't. Like my blue might be a completely unique blue compared to your blue.
Well, we're both humans. Imagine what a dog is seeing.
Everything's a bone.
They are seeing things that are shifted down in the color spectrum. Yeah. So they're still seeing color. They're just seeing it at lower frequencies than what we're seeing in color. Think about my parrot. Birds generally are seeing the iridescent spectrum.
Really?
So for them,
I didn't know that.
Everything is much brighter.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I do think a lot, especially with dogs, about the fact they hear a whole different world than we can hear.
Oh, forget hearing, smell.
That too. Yeah.
They smell in 3D. Yeah.
Yeah. This is why we can't have pets at my house. It's a cornucopia of smells on any given day. Yeah, no, but it's so crazy. It is this other world. It is this whole other thing that they're experiencing.
For many, the game changer is bimodal hearing, wearing a cochlear implant in one ear and hearing it in the other if you have any residual hearing in one of your ears.
Yeah.
Together, they blend electrical precision with acoustic depth, restoring balance, tone, and spatial awareness. The hybrid approach can make sound feel fuller and more natural, merging two worlds of technology into one listening experience. The result is not just hearing restored, but understanding reborn through brain power and innovation.
We like to joke a lot about the meatware being behind the tech, right? Into computers and AI simulation, yada, yada, yada. But man, the meatware is pretty adaptable, right? It's just
the brain
incredible.
is quite flexible.
Yeah.
I want to be very clear about the phrase I used there, not just hearing restored. It is not hearing restored in the sense of conventional hearing.
Yeah.
It is hearing restored from no hearing to hearing.
Yeah, it's giving you the ability to hear something.
Okay, lifestyle integration and practical challenges. Living with cochlear implants means merging human biology with active electronics. An incredible fusion, but not without trade-offs.
Like you've got to charge yourself more. I'm trying to think what's the trick.
Everyday life demands adaptation, removing processors for swimming, protecting hardware during high-impact sports, explaining devices at airport security, losing your processor in a taxi or a hotel room. We'll put links to video describing his experience with that.
I mean, looking at some of the features of the newer devices compared to the older devices, one of the features that is a selling point on some of the newer cochlear implants is the sort of locate my device, right? Sort of like the Find My Phone.
Provided you have battery left, yes.
Yeah, of course. But it's just interesting to me that all these other completely unrelated to cochlear implant improvements that have allowed you so that like every 12 minutes minutes when I lose my cell phone, I can walk around my house with my Apple Watch to find it because I'm too forgetful to remember where I put it on my phone. That's really cool, right? You're seeing these other completely unrelated technologies push into this to make it a better day-to-day experience for folks.
Because losing your cochlear processor means you lose your connection with the sound world.
Losing your ears.
Yeah.
It'd be like taking off your ears. I mean, glasses is probably the closest analog most people can understand. Although my hunch is you can still, even if you've got a really bad set of eyesight, you can still see something and like make it out and probably fudge your way through. Maybe you can't read or something, but you just fudge your way through the day. If you had a cochlear implant, you're probably not hearing anything. You're definitely not hearing speech.
Yeah, you drop to zero. They talk about that when the batteries give you that beep that you have, just a few minutes left of batteries.
Yeah.
And if you're talking or something and you don't hear that beep, all of a sudden, all sound just
powers down.
It just, it just turns off.
Yeah.
And what a shock that is when you go from something to nothing. You become very dependent on the devices.
And with a hearing aid, somebody might be able to still, if your hearing aid battery dies, they can still come over and sort of speak loudly and you might hear them. Probably not going to be the case with cochlear implant. You're probably so far gone in your natural hearing that that's not going to work.
Wireless streaming and Bluetooth connectivity bring freedom, yet they also tether users to charging routines and fragile tech. Moisture, magnets, and battery life become part of daily vocabulary. For many, the CI is both empowering and demanding, a life-changing upgrade that still requires vigilance and care. True integration isn't just about hearing again. It's about learning to live confidently with technology as part of yourself, balancing convenience, caution, and ever-present advances of innovation.
I mean, this is the singularity, right? Maybe not as science fiction as Kurzweil has painted
This is more useful singularity.
Well, yeah, but the singularity...
This is practical singularity.
In its highest level, if you want to describe it in a half a sentence, it's just the merging of humanity and technology. And that's what this is. You are augmenting these otherwise meatware-based processes with technology so that now those folks can hear. I think that's pretty awesome.
You're not just turning up sound, you're creating a whole new way to hear.
Yeah. Well, because your sound detectors don't work anymore. That's the problem. Your sound detectors aren't going to be repaired.
This is the part you and I are going to like because we like technology. Technological frontiers and future innovations. Forget today's processors. The next generation of cochlear implants is being designed to disappear beneath the skin and think for itself. Engineers and neuroscientists are racing toward the totally implantable cochlear implant, a system that eliminates external hardware and functions seamlessly 24/7. I'm really interested as to how they charge that under the skin.
I bet you they don't.
Well, or maybe it's like my toothbrush where I connect a magnet to it and it does the
Here's
charging.
the thing. Because we have this awesome benefit of Moore's Law, which is normally interpreted as things going faster for the same price, there's two ways you can interpret that. The other way to interpret it is you can also get the same for a lot less packaging, less power.
Yeah.
So if you take the same amount of compute power, generally speaking, and apply Moore's Law to it, you're going to use less and less power over time. At some point, you have enough processing power in these cochlear implants. Now you can focus on driving power down. As you drive power down, there are very interesting ways to generate electrical power from the human body. And namely, I think the way they typically do it is with a gradient in heat. Like it's basically the Matrix.
Oh, interesting.
They'll steal heat from your body to generate a little tiny bit of current. And now you can get rid of batteries, right? Now you're powering your cochlear implant just from the heat that your body, the heat you produce.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know for sure that's happening with cochlear implants, but I have read about this in other implants, other things that they're doing. There's another way they can do it too that's a little more technical, and I think it requires you to be close to the bloodstream, so maybe not applicable here. But it's really fascinating, and I think this is the stuff that really unlocks the science fiction version of singularity that at least I think of when I hear Kurzweil's name, which is tech that's just like swimming around inside me. This is like a big step in that direction if you can do it.
Artificial intelligence is being woven into these systems capable of analyzing and filtering sound in real time. Imagine an implant that doesn't just amplify noise, but understands it. This is what I need in hearing aids.
Yeah.
Distinguishing voices in a crowded room, adapting automatically to new environments, and personalizing sound for each listener's brain. These breakthroughs raise the question, can technology finally bridge the gap between electrical stimulation and the rich complexity of natural hearing? We are absolutely not there yet, but the future is bright.
I have to believe that we will get there. And I have to believe the rate at which we're going to, like this tech's only existed for 40 years?
And it's exploding right now.
Yeah.
The advances being made right now are
I gotta believe that's going to continue.
Yes.
Like at some point when you can map out or triangulate where all the hairs are and map a signal to every single hair, you're probably in the window now, right? The scale here of number of hairs is low. We're talking about single digit thousands, right? Like that's relatively low in the world of computation.
Okay.
So now being able to generate a signal for each one, that's not that hard. I mean, for example, look at the low Earth orbiting satellite antennas that we have. Those are antenna arrays that are in the hundreds or thousands of little tiny antennas on one flat panel.
Yeah.
And they're doing digital signal processing across every single antenna to figure out where the signal is. This is why you don't have to point your Starlink antenna at the satellites. You couldn't. They're moving too fast. But your DirecTV dish, you have to point in the general vicinity of the satellite. So you're already seeing these kinds of leaps and bounds
improvements
in signal processing. And that's just going to continue. I see absolutely no reason for that to slow down.
We're apes.
Oh, yeah.
We're the apes who decided to work on our thinking, our brains instead of our muscles. And we have figured out how to put something in someone's head, in next to their ear, that allows them to have hearing where once they had none. All right, we have to get out of here, but quickly before we do, have you seen or read anything good this week?
Well, yeah.
Yeah?
I didn't read it, but I watched the World Series. That was pretty good.
That was pretty amazing.
Like, I loved that.
I think this is the most exciting World Series I have seen in my lifetime.
And that is my concern because, as you know...
It's all downhill from here.
I know. Apparently now I'm a baseball fan, right? So my fear is I'm going to be spending the next 20 to 50 years...
Chasing the dragon
to try to get this experience again. And be like, well, there was that one time... And because it was so nuts. Now, last year's World Series was pretty darn good, right? The Dodgers over the Yankees. My thought after the ALDS Game 5 that I went to was, wow, this is going to be the best game of the entire postseason. This game was incredible. It was a nail biter. Like, this is it. This is the one. I feel like there were at least 3, if not 4 games in the World Series that were better than that.
Yeah.
And that was insane because after that Game 5, people were like, this is going to go down in history as one of the best postseason games ever. And then we had 4 more. Now, they had the World Series, and it was just like every single one was just this epic,
a nail biter,
epic performance.
Sure.
And by the way, I'm not just saying this as a Dodgers fan. Like, I'm saying this as a observer of Dodgers and Blue Jays. Both teams had some absolutely amazing moments. It was really incredible. So anyway, I can't not highlight that. It has sparked this thing in my brain to go back and watch what I think are my 2 favorite baseball films, which would be, of course, The Natural from 1984, which I probably haven't seen in 25 years. And then, of course, Major League from 1989 with Mr. Sheen, because that was also a pretty fun run.
So great.
That's what I'm going to suggest. Have you seen or read anything good that's not the World Series or a baseball film? There. Good luck with that.
I will say, in relation to this episode, it is 2021's Best Picture Oscar-winning film, CODA. It centers on Ruby, the sole hearing member of her deaf family who juggles the family fishing business with a secret passion for singing. The film explores the push and pull between familiar obligation and pursuing one's dreams. It features authentic casting with deaf actors playing the deaf roles and utilizing American Sign Language seamlessly.
Amazing.
It is a heartwarming coming-of-age story that culminates in a powerful emotional experience where family connects through music and sign. It is beautiful. CODA, which stands for Child of Deaf Adults, on Apple TV Plus now.
I don't want to tell you I've heard this is a great film because it literally won Best Picture.
It's a great film.
It's supposed to be incredible, right? Yeah.
And it's so moving.
And also another just amazing, like, again, your recommendation. I made 9 recommendations and somehow still yours is better. I mean, I picked a film that had Robert Redford in it and I still can't win. Anyway, CODA
is wonderful. Very different
I'm going to check those out, I promise.
That is the episode.
Thank you for joining us for all this nonsense. A truly terrible podcast from our awful company. Visit us on the web at nonsense.productions. I'm Stu.
I'm Jeff Parker.
If you like this program, please follow, download, subscribe, and like at Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, AntennaPod, iHeartRadio, Spotify, my favorite Overcast, wherever you may get your podcasts from.
Nonsense Studios relies on Pipewire for handling audio and video under Linux. Powerful and efficient, Pipewire achieves low latency and low CPU utilization through a graph-based processing engine implemented in 30,000 lines of open-source straight-C programming. If you use audio and video on Linux, check out Pipewire.
You nerd. We'll be every Tuesday and Thursday morning for more nonsense. Please join us.
I feel sorry for dogs who lose their hearing because hearing is such a huge part of a dog's world.
I mean, we can just go ahead and feel sorry for anything that loses its hearing.
That's true.
Like, who are you okay with? You're like, cats? F them. Don't give a What? No. Anything that loses its hearing sounds terrible.